So then you've got to say, well, where do you stop? You know what I mean? If you look at the animals that have become extinct in this century, in fact, this last 50 years, I mean, of all the animals that have become extinct for the last 10,000 years, a tremendous percentage of them have become extinct this last 50 years. But where do we draw a line? Where do we stop? And we mustn't ever forget that mankind may not be the last animal on this earth. We have this sometimes rather high-minded thought that when the world finally stops, that we'll close the door as we go out. Well, that may not be the case. There are many more animals more fit to survive on this earth than we are.
Here at the Jersey Wildlife Preservation Trust, which is a registered charity, we undertake our conservation work in a number of different ways. Apart from our zoological park, we're working with a number of endangered species in several different countries, studying the reasons why they're becoming endangered in the wild, and then taking steps to ensure their survival. In many of these countries, there's little expertise in this area, and so we've undertaken a unique role in giving training here in Jersey to men and women from all corners of the earth and the techniques of captive breeding. They then return home, developing this work still further in their own countries. After all, a well-trained Mauritian conservationist, working in his own country, has a greater impact on the local people, because together they are caring for their own heritage. Now, in recent years, many of the world's leading zoos have undertaken breeding programs for some of the most endangered species. Unfortunately, this has resulted in a handful of species, usually the most popular, receiving all the attention. We feel particularly strongly that all creatures, whether popular or not, have as much right to exist, and therefore most of our resources are spent working with the less appealing species, often ignored by others. If we concentrated solely on these, however, we wouldn't attract the large numbers of visitors necessary to support this incredibly expensive work, which is so desperately needed today. With that in mind, we've also included one or two of the box office attractions, such as the magnificent lowland gorilla, and even they have their problems.
You know, gorillas have got a very bad press, one way or another, both in magazines and in comic strips, and also, of course, in Hollywood films, where they're always depicted as being these great monstrous apes that attack you without any provocation at all. Well, of course, the direct opposite is true. They are, in fact, rather large, gentle vegetarians. And here, Yambo, who's had 10 babies with us, you've only got to watch him and his wives and his children to see exactly how gentle and charming they are. Now, we're very lucky in our breeding program with gorillas. We're one of the most successful zoos in the world. But if it wasn't for Yambo, of course, we wouldn't be successful, because he's such a marvelous father. And we wouldn't be successful also if we didn't have somebody really good to look after him. And that's Richard Johnson Scott.
An important factor in maintaining a healthy captive group is a carefully balanced diet. In the wild, gorillas are very selective and leisurely eaters and forage throughout the day, breaking only into midday siestas of 2 to 3 hours. The reason for this long, continuous feeding is the low nutritional value of their herbivorous diet, which in turn accounts for their capacious stomachs and large bellies. An adult male may consume up to 27 kilograms of forage in the course of a day. In captivity, a fat gorilla is an unhealthy gorilla. And Yambo, for example, would eat probably only about a third or a quarter in weight of what a wild gorilla would consume. Because our diet is much higher nutritional value. The Jersey gorillas receive a very good, carefully balanced diet of fruit and vegetables, supplemented with a specially prepared 8 pellets containing vitamins, minerals and trace elements. They also get milk, which is given twice daily, and natural yogurt containing extra vitamin additives. Eggs are also included in the diet once a week, and the feeds are administered 3 times a day, around 8:30 in the morning, midday, and then late afternoon. The idea of a forage feed, which includes branches and leaves, sunflower seeds, raisins, or maize plants, that type of thing, is to keep the gorillas occupied. Forage feeds are given in between the main feeds, and so, for example, if we put raisins in the area, the gorillas will spend 4 or 5 times as long searching for this food, rather than just simply picking it up and consuming it immediately.
Richard Johnson Scott can often be found himself occupying the gorillas. By this time, all the females are rearing their own babies, often encouraged by others who've perhaps done it before. The advantages of the open-air compound, where gorillas can look at humans and vice versa, are beneficial to both. And since the day when little Lee Van Merritt accidentally fell in, interest in the animals and their behavior has increased enormously. The newest mother is Kishka. She brought her day-old baby across to join Richard for a light vegetarian meal with such trust. I wondered whether it could ever be the same with Yambo.
No, I wouldn't go in with Yambo. The reason being that Yambo arrived here when he was 11 years old. I wasn't working here at the time. And Yambo was also, like you said, the first mother-reared gorilla ever to be born in captivity. So he had no contact with humans whatsoever. And so there would be no point in me suddenly, coming here in sort of 1979 and deciding to walk in with Yambo. He wouldn't like it, and I certainly wouldn't even attempt it. Kishka was a totally different situation, because Kishka, in fact, I knew from another zoo I worked at, where she was born. I was present at her birth, and I was very pleased to be present at the birth of her daughter, Katina, in July. But Kishka I've known since birth, so it makes a massive difference. If you start with gorillas when they're young, then there's no reason why you should ever have to stop going into them. It's a privilege to be able to do that. And it's what every keeper tries to aim for, is establishing a relationship with an animal based on a mutual trust. It's something you have to work at. It takes a long time to establish. But there's no substitute for that. Once you get a relationship with an animal, then you can never explain to anyone else what it's like. It's a wonderful feeling.
To watch this gentle giant, now weighing over 30 stone, play with his own youngsters gives some slight indication of how he was able to react to the unconscious 5-year-old boy, while the child's parents and others had looked on in growing amazement. Yambo placed himself between the child and the rest of his family, appearing to stand guard. The zoo staff themselves were not surprised at the way the huge gorilla behaved.
Well, my reaction to Yambo's behaviour, I wasn't surprised by it, because he is by nature a very gentle animal. Obviously, we were very shocked by the whole incident, but having seen the video of Yambo sitting there protecting the child, he seemed to adopt a very protective attitude anyway. No, it didn't surprise me at all. It's the sort of reaction you would expect for him to... he would act in the same way had it been one of his own youngsters.
So is he truly a gorilla among gorillas? Because he's not always treated well by human beings, is he?
No, we do get people come around and will tease the animals. And I suppose living in sort of captive situations, there are bound to be pressures on these animals, which I think says all the more for Yambo's reaction to that particular situation. But he is. I've looked after quite a few gorillas in my time, and I would say that Yambo is certainly the easiest male gorilla I've looked after. He's easy to get on with and to handle. Yes, he's pretty exceptional.
Now, is it because he's been very happily integrated with his family group? Is that one of the main reasons that contributed to his behaviour on Sunday?
Yes, breeding gorillas is one thing, but producing or creating and maintaining a breeding group is another. Because gorillas have to be treated as individuals. They're all individuals as we are. Yambo is, as I said before, a very understanding, very easy animal to get on with, both as far as I'm concerned, also with his group. Had he been a difficult male, then the group wouldn't be as compatible as it is today. And I'm sure that, because of his behaviour towards other gorillas, and as you saw in the film, towards that child, that we've been very successful because of it, as far as breeding gorillas in Jerk is concerned.
But as a happy family man, as an old happy family man, he has every right to protect his territory. What if, a hypothetical question, Richard, what if it hadn't been a child who'd fallen in, it had been an adult, not badly injured, moving about?
I think, yes, in a situation where, as you say, if an adult jumped in there, decided to sort of jump in there, sort of bravado or something, and Yambo, obviously, he would be no match for Yambo, he or she would be no match for Yambo, and Yambo would defend his group, and obviously, probably a very aggressive way. but it's very difficult to say any more than that. But I don't advise anyone to go jumping in with Yambo.
Lee Van Merritt, the 5-year-old boy who fell into the gorilla compound at Jersey Zoo, was able just 3 weeks later to return and meet the male gorilla which had guarded him. The ambulance man, Brian Fox, who'd jumped into the enclosure to administer first aid, received the Gold Star Award, as did Bob Geldof, and Yambo destroyed forever the myth of the gorilla as a savage, aggressive beast.
But I'm only glad that I was able to see it on film. But I'd rather it hadn't happened. But nevertheless, I mean, Yambo being Yambo, it turned out very well in the end.
In just a few moments, we bring you another episode of Supergram.